Hey, let's talk about wages and salaries and try to figure out what's the difference between the two. But before we look at the differences, let's look at what's similar. Well, they're both types of income. They're both ways that you get paid. Someone can get paid for the job that they do. So what about the differences? Well, let's go through and have a look at each one individually. A wage is usually an amount that you'll get paid for every hour of work that you do. So for example, you might get paid $25 per hour. So you'd say your wage is $25 an hour. So obviously the pay or the income you get for a week of work will depend on how many hours you do. So if you do more hours, you're going to get paid more, or if you do less hours, you'll get less, obviously. So that can be a little bit of a disadvantage, I guess, of being paid hourly. I mean, if it's busy, it's good. You'll get paid a lot, but if it's quiet, then you'll get maybe paid less, okay, because you're doing less hours. So here's an example. We've got Sarah who's earning $19 per hour. So what would her wage be for a week where she works 35 hours? Well, she does 35 hours, and for every one of those, she gets $19. So we're going to multiply them together. She's got 35 lots of $19. And when we do that, we get $665. Sorry, I had an itchy face. But a salary is a little bit different. If you're earning a salary, you kind of get paid for like a block of work, usually for a year. So you might say, all right, someone's income for the year is $80,000, and these little letters PA mean per annum. It just means per year. So in this case, they would say they have a salary of $80,000 a year, $80,000 per annum. So how does this differ? Well, often if you're on a salary, you don't get extra money if you work extra hours. So say you have a really busy week, like me, who's a teacher, I get paid a salary. So if I have a busy week where I've got to do, some extra reports or maybe some parent interviews, I don't get paid extra even though I work those extra hours. You just get paid for like a year's worth of work. Now, I guess one of the benefits of that is, unlike wages, you've got this consistent income. You know that you're going to get paid that amount. So even if things get quiet, you're still going to get your salary. Now, the maths that we often do with this is we can convert these to weekly or monthly amounts. So if Jerry has a salary of $75,000 per annum, so every year he gets $75,000, well, what is his weekly amount? Because even if you're on a salary, you don't get paid once a year. You might get paid weekly or fortnightly, but you get an amount that reflects that over a whole year. So we take the $75,000 in this case. This is Jerry's salary here, and we're wanting to know how much per week. So there are 52 weeks in 1 year. So I take the 75,000 and I divide it by 52. That gives me this amount here. So that's what Jerry gets per week for an equivalent of $75,000 across a year. What about his salary per month? Well, there are 12 months in a year. So I take the salary and I divide it by 12 and I get an amount of 6,250. So his equivalent monthly salary would be 6,250. That's it, guys. I mean, that's a brief summary of the differences between wages and salaries. Now, if you're doing this in a class context, I'd like you to pause now and just copy down the summary and the example. So basically everything you see on the screen can go into your notebook. So you've got a summary of this wages versus salaries. And then when you unpause it in a second, I'm going to have some questions for you to have a go at. All right, here are some practice questions for you guys. So once again, I'd like you to pause, and in a minute or in a couple of seconds, I'll put up the solutions. I'll put up the answers so you can check how you went. If you're doing this in a class, obviously I'd like you to take the questions, copy them into your notebook, and then have a go at answering them. Put as much working out as you can so that your teacher can have a look and see that you understood how these worked out. But then you can check against the answers that are about to come up in a second. So better pause if you haven't done it, because here we go with the answers. And there are your solutions. All right. If you got different answers and you weren't sure, make sure you grab your teacher, have a chat, try and figure out where it is that you went wrong. Good job. Well done.